What's the plan, Tesla? Welcome back.
CyberSpace.
Empirical Trainers. Do you know what I mean? So like Empirical Trainers. Welcome back.
Hello and welcome back to the CyberSpace podcast by Empirical Training. My name's Josh and I'm joined with Andrew, Robbie and Vaughan today to take you through current cybersecurity topics. We picked out some key bits from the news, as well as probably more importantly, our experience on the front lines in our cybersecurity roles as cybersecurity professionals, and the things that we've been talking about in our school community on school.com/secops. So, gentlemen, AJ, Vaughan, Robbie, I want to take us first into S3 buckets. So I know that these have been around for a while. Tale as old as time is people leaving a S3 bucket public. Anyone remember their first time they found one of those?
Yeah, I remember all of the alerts coming in. I think in the first place that we worked, were there alerts there then? We have to publicly set to publicly available. And yeah, what's this? 2015? Probably 2015. I think. Yeah.
We were seeing them manually, weren't we? In the log review team, I swear that was one of the saved views that we had for AWS.
There was two approaches. There was the kind of live alerts that were done pretty much as and when they happened, when someone had set it to open or public as that value, which meant anyone could access it. And the other one was looking at the last 24 hours of S3 bucket activity and looking if they'd sent, if I remember correctly, was that asterisk, wasn't it? Wildcard kind of fields you could assign to who would be able to access it in the IP ranges, which basically means somebody's being lazy and wants anybody to be able to access the S3 bucket because they can't be bothered to work out who should be allowed to access it.
And you also see the IP address as well of 0.0.0/0, which means it's open to the world, which is another lazy thing you can do as well.
Yeah. So why is that a problem, and why might people want to do it if they're devs and who aren't thinking about security?
I mean, we've hit the nail on the head, right? Trying to leave it open for access, whether it's traveling. I know I've experienced something at the moment where I'm doing some stuff on a server and I've only opened it up to one IP, and then for whatever reason I've reset my router at home and it's changed my IP address. So even that can add some minor inconvenience.
Yeah, can imagine now with people on the road as well. You don't know where people are going to be too. So yeah, I mean, VPNs they should be logging into, but you might just be like, "Oh, I'll open it broader than that." And so, what? Let's take us back a further step. What is an S3 bucket? Like, what are we even talking about, boys?
Well, an S3 bucket is a storage container in Amazon Web Services. Effectively storing images, basically whatever you want attached to your containers.
Are they categorized as objects in the S3 bucket?
Yeah, it can be called that. And then like in Azure, people are more familiar with Azure, there's the blob storage. So basically it's like freeform storage for stuff. And like web applications use it.
Cloud, right? Like a hard drive in the cloud, right?
That's a good way of describing it. Yeah. So if that's open to anybody, anyone can go and read what's in there. And what's the worst thing that could be in there? I mean, it ranges from personal identifiable information and a big old GDPR fine or whatever compliance standard is protecting that data, or secrets as well. That's a big one. We see people leaving a secret in an S3 bucket. Yeah.
Do you want to define what you mean by secrets, just in case people?
No, it's my secret.
People a note that they've written down that they don't want to do.
Yeah, it's gossip. It's them gossiping about the other devs. No, it's
be
secret
credentials. You never know.
There it is. Account credentials. It can be encryption keys. A secret is like a generic term for something that is used in some form of authentication or can get you in to see something that you're not supposed to see. It's supposed to be protected for a reason. That's why the password was put on it. And if anyone can grab the password, what's the point in the password in the first place? So we see that a lot in S3 buckets. We've also seen that in the last few weeks in Android apps. There were a few Android apps that have had them stored in clear text as well. So people grabbing those, then using those secrets to authenticate into the cloud environments and read the source code and steal more bits as well. But you might be thinking, why are we talking about S3 buckets? That's S3 buckets. When we started this conversation, talking about 2015, when we first started analyzing those things together. But this month, last 2 weeks, there was an interesting article about S3 bucket name squatting and sniping. So to be fair to Amazon, they have understood that, hey, making these public is not a good thing. Everyone's adults. We want to let them do what they want to do. So they actually, as standard now, they put it to private, and you have to enable it as public. In the past, it could be public as the beginners. People, when we used to contact people, they realized what they were doing when we would tell them, hey, everyone in the world can see this if they wanted to. But did anyone see the Amazon CDK, AWS CDK thing that was used to help write the AWS buckets? Yeah, so that the complaint was that they were, yes, it was an easy way of writing them, and yes, there was some security, but it was too standardized in that the naming conventions, you could basically work out the formula, and then you could find them, and also ones that were more sensitive, I think, had more sensitive strings attached to them, and basically try and crack into them. So it's a little bit of a security through obscurity. People were upset that it was so common and easy to understand, because knowledge is power for these hackers, right? If they know what data storage is, they can try and find their way in, particularly as they're not always that public these days.
Oh, so they were able to guess the URL of the S3 bucket. Is that what it is?
Basically guess the location by knowing the exact name. And it actually created an interesting conversation because that happens, and I think they're working to address it now. But naming conventions, have you guys seen any fun naming conventions when you were working for different managed service providers? I'm thinking host names or usernames, and maybe you've got some good examples of ones that are good for security and bad examples of ones for bad security.
So you see a lot of people just using superhero names.
They'll follow Marvel naming conventions for servers and that, won't they?
Yeah, I've seen ones talking about Game of Thrones, Nearest Targaryen, all those types of names.
Yeah, we're nerds, right? But basically, for those who are trying to follow along, the naming conventions we're talking about, servers or workstations, they'll usually have a domain name, which, if you're non-inventive, it might be London office, or just London, and then the next name might be the indicator for the web server 1 or primary web server or Windows machine. All of that is giving information that's easy to guess for an attacker, but also reveal some information about that machine that they probably have to work harder for getting. So anyone want to talk about reconnaissance and why more knowledge equal more power for these hackers?
I mean, if anyone, reconnaissance being the first step in the attack chain, trying to gather information is going to be absolutely vital in order to allow you to move on to the next stages. So if you can identify an account that's been compromised is a Linux host, or if you're on a web server, that's going to change the steps you take later compared to, one, not knowing what you're on and needing to perform more steps, and just allow your whole operation, so to say, to be a lot more streamlined.
Mm-hmm. So and Robbie, so is actually that the Daenerys Targaryen naming conventions, or the nerdy ones we guessed, is that better or worse than the kind of the boring London Windows example I gave?
I would say they're better because they're non-typical, aren't they? It's better than just saying DC01 London or London DC01, then you pretty much know that's the domain controller in London. So
yeah,
at least if they use some type of arbitrary naming convention that's associated to something like Game of Thrones, then it's going to be way better.
Yeah, so the IT admins probably have a poster in their office, or if they're still in the office, that says Daenerys Targaryen equals cloud data centers, or
it's
Tyrion
code
Lannister.
words, isn't it? Pretty much.
Yeah. So that's
something small for Tyrion Lannister.
The laptops and tablets.
Yeah, mobile phone. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's a good point, because you've got to be able to know it. And I think we were talking about here is a bit of security through obscurity, which I'll leave you guys a second to comment on when that is good and when that's not good. But it's something that ideally it'd be even more completely random, but then that's going to be a nightmare for the IT admins to kind of organize and keep track of things. So that's the happy middle ground they often use, finding some code names that are familiar with them. Star Wars is one I always still see. And I've done security for some animation studios, and they used all of their characters for it. I thought that was quite a cool one. I used to enjoy analyzing the logs for that company. So security for obscurity, what does it mean?
What does it mean? I love one of my favorite ever short form posts on our page, and we've got about 800 plus, is
Ooh.
your one out in the wild talking about security through obscurity, or maybe it wasn't out in the wild, but the example was anyway.
Oh yeah, maybe. I think I think we've done quite a few of them now. But yeah, trying to hide yourself so no one quite knows where you are. It's a effective security measure until they find out where you are, and then if you've just relied on that, you've got no security. So yeah, was that the one when I was hiding behind a bush or in a cliff or something, really zoomed out, like here I am?
Yeah, it was something like that. Yeah.
Weird volley going on.
Yeah, my partner enjoyed filming that one with me. But yeah, so the security obscurity definitely has its place. What we need to mention is that it is not a strategy in itself, right? If you just try and make everything really hard to guess, you think you're safe. Once they guess it or find it, it's just like everyone whacking everything behind a VPN. Once they break your VPN, they've got everything else behind there. So it's part of a defense in depth strategy.
CyberSpace Empirical Trainers.
So security through obscurity, we kind of started that train of thought by talking about the Amazon S3 buckets that were out there, glaringly obvious for everybody to see. We talked about naming conventions being too easy to guess as well. So if we need to make sure that they aren't public and that the names aren't easily guessed, how could we go about securing making sure our devs or cloud end architects aren't making those little mistakes, which may seem innocent to them in the moment?
Yeah, ultimately, obviously in AWS, if you're going to be wanting to log every activity that takes place in the account, and AWS uses CloudTrail. Obviously, every cloud provider uses their own login system, but in AWS, it's CloudTrail. And then once you've got access to those logs, then you're going to be wanting to search that particular S3 bucket. You want to double check if it is publicly available to the internet. So you're going to be looking out for the setting which is actually switched on and the IPs where they're actually going out to. Usually it's public as 0.0.0/0. And you'll usually try and prevent this. Anytime that a developer might try and do this, you'll want to generate an alert anytime they set any public S3 bucket, because it's not likely that you want to use these often. It does depend on the nature of the business. But then when you do have the events and you have alert has generated to say that there is a public S3 bucket has potentially been accessed, you're going to be looking for specific access events, so get object and list bucket, and then you're going to be checking the IP address in the log to try and determine what they might have done. So there are a few things that you want to be doing to respond to.
Mm-hmm. So that's real practical advice: how to detect when it's happened, and then how to investigate to see what did they get. Is it just the intended people who are accessing it, or have we got a malicious IP who's managed to kind of pull any sensitive data, and what did they pull back? So thanks AJ, always on the front lines. And the speed at which this happens, it kind of really matters. And that's the thing with cloud. People who are scared to get into cloud are usually worried, I feel way more exposed out there. And you kind of are, because the trade-off with cloud is you are asking for super quick efficiencies, be able to access things in a moment, spin things up and down in a moment as well. You gain speed, but the attackers, any benefit you gain, normally the attackers gain as well, and they can find your weaknesses quicker too. So time is really of the essence there, and having a detection like that in place to catch it when the policy isn't followed is really important, because I think the attackers, with a matter of seconds, they can find exposed secrets on a GitHub, for example, AWS secrets. So it just shows how important it is. AJ, 2015, we started talking about. We saw it all the time back then. That was when people were probably fairly new to the kind of concept S3 buckets. Like we said, it was when AWS made them public by default, so it was more of an innocent mistake. Does it still happen?
It does still happen, yeah. I've seen it with customers this week, really. So it definitely does happen. Mistakes will always happen, and part of that is what keeps us in the job, to be honest, that we have to respond to those mistakes. So yeah, even though they've made changes, like you said, the human error will always prevail. So it keeps us in the job, which is a great thing. But it definitely does happen, and I'm sure it doesn't just happen to the customers I work for. I'm sure there's many other companies it happens as well. Yeah,
no doubt. That's why we're here. That's why AJ's looking over your environment and your actions. Friendly face, friendly eyes.
The watchman.
Oh, always watching.
CyberSpace Empirical Trainers.
Vaughan, you were talking about something interesting, and I don't want to steal your thunder, because I think that's a pretty cool one. Do you want to bring it up?
Yeah, for sure. So there's been some recent news out lately of a Chinese gang that are exploiting certain routers for credential theft and adding them to a botnet. So there's a company or a gang out there dubbed Quad 7 or 777, and what these guys are doing are exploiting TP-Link routers. Some of you guys
Oh, really?
listening might have TP-Links in your house. So if your Wi-Fi, so if your Wi-Fi doesn't reach a certain room and you're trying to get that extended, you can easily purchase TP-Link routers off places online that will actually connect to your Wi-Fi and extend your range. But what they found that there's a recent exploit in these that allows them to get taken over and for remote code execution to take place. So what happens is the exploit is performed, and then that allows them to perform remote code execution. I won't go into the full attack chain, but what it allows them to do is download a binary that then installs a reverse backdoor on the router, which they can then log into and perform different tasks from there, along with performing extra remote code execution.
What are they doing with this access? They basically take over your TP link, and I'm worried. Actually, we had to check my own TP links because I have some in some places. But what are they using them for? What's the point? Taking over a little tiny Wi-Fi extender.
Yeah, it's a good question, Josh. And it's the same thinking about some of the other IoT devices, things like smart fridges, smart kettles. They all kind of get bundled into the same category in terms of the devices that have internet access that you think aren't really a big issue. But what we're seeing with a lot of these smaller devices that don't typically need to be a computer with a screen, but they are a computer at the end of the day, they're being added to these botnets that are then controlled by a puppet master that can carry out their duties to do whatever you want, right? There's been DDoS attacks that have gone against Microsoft, taking Microsoft down. There's been DDoS attacks against all different types of companies, streamers, content creators, all those sorts of, anyone with a target are typically a target of these botnets. And everyone's in the firing line technically. I can't think of the highest DDoS attack data, Josh. I'm sure we spoke about it before, but
we have, and everybody reports it differently, to be honest. I don't know what that is, but the one I just did a quick search now, and I'm getting 3.8 terabits per second, or terabytes per second. No, that's terabits. 4.2, I see someone else reporting.
Yeah, it's a lot in different locations, but
huge.
But you can just think of it. People and actors out there want to be able to perform these DDoS attacks. So when any sort of IoT device becomes vulnerable, such as these TP-Link routers, they're typically captured in a net, almost like a phishing analogy, and added into these botnets to then go and perform whatever actions the threat actor wants.
Yeah.
Vaughan, for the non-techie user that has a TP-Link extender in their homes, do they have to go and update the firmware on that device, or is TP-Link the company pushing out a patch?
It's a very good question, and I haven't actually looked into it, but I would definitely recommend trying to get a firmware update on it. I'm not sure how you go about doing that. Maybe it's something we can add into the description of this pod potentially, but there definitely will be a way to update the firmware on there.
How are they getting access then? And how does how does it actually work? How are they getting
I'm not sure the specifics. The TP-Link router will be publicly accessible.
Yeah, go on Showdown. See if you can find any.
Yeah, like anything publicly accessible.
But it's just publicly accessible on port 80 and 443 and
wherever port is available on. Someone will be able to log into it, can perform the exploit, because this providing internet, it obviously has to have internet on it. So typically the gateway in your house is your router, but it's kind of an extension of your router, right? So
just search on YouTube firmware update TP-Link extender, then maybe the model. I don't think you would need the model, but there'll be loads of tutorials on how to connect to the TP-Link extender and update the firmware.
Is it just the extender then, or is it all TP-Link routers?
I'm not sure the specific version number.
You're really grilling Andy, aren't you?
Andy, not the vulnerability.
Anyone would think he works for TP-Link, like.
I literally just set one up. Just set up a TP.
Have you?
router.
Yeah, I would.
Oh, fuck.
I'd take this stance of presume compromise, and I'd go and update
Get a new
your
one,
stuff
mate.
as soon.
Oh man, we're all compromised. The cybersecurity professionals now. Hopefully not. I did just do a little search on Shodan, just a basic one. I haven't refined it too hard, but looking for TP-Link devices or with that in kind of the headers, and I've got 1,200-ish hits back. So
Lovely.
it's not as many as I was expecting if like every TP-Link was available. So maybe it's not as prevalent as you might think. But actually, I kind of saw your line of questioning, AJ, that you're thinking, are they like getting in range of them with their the range of the Wi-Fi, like driving around, smashing into these TP-Links as they get close to people's houses?
No, I was thinking of like, yeah, if they are just scanning the internet and finding these routers, and then they're able, so they don't even have to log into the router interface, right?
Apparently, as long as they can like see the traffic and connect to it, not even logging in, they should be able to perform the exploit.
Okay, yeah,
No pre-auth. No
Yeah,
pre-auth
That's
needed.
terrifying.
Rob, you and I talked on last week about DDoS attacks, because this is what the TP-Link's been used for, about how it's used in ransomware in order to distract or put more pressure on security teams as the ransomware actors kind of do their thing and move about. So I just, the first question is, how spooky is that?
That's pretty damn spooky, man.
That was a fun episode last week. Check it out if you haven't. And I'll give you a chance to add anything else on after this if you want. But I think maybe let's post advice on how to secure that, because we're all going to have to look into our own devices in the school community. So school.com/secops. Is that right, boys? Cybersec.
SecOps
We've got
is the
two.
mentorship community.
SecOps is the paid one for our mentorship, where we can help you get a cybersecurity job. Managed to get the plug in there out of a mistake. Love it. Okay, nice. Well, actually, now I want to make. We also want to add in. Okay, that was a news story. A lot of good insights there, but also, anyone got any experience? Has anyone kind of heard anything in their security communities or anything that this has actually been affecting their organization?
Yeah, so I've actually had experience with this today. Again, can't go into too much of the specifics, but just reading up on it here as well. AJ, you asked the question. Apparently, it's vulnerable over Telnet, just as a bit of extra information. But yeah, so one of my analysts on my team was performing a bit of a pre-sales deep dive for a customer we have in the pipeline, and part of this pre-sales deep dive, they actually uncovered this quad 7777 threat actor attempting to log into some of this prospective customers' TP-Link devices, which is pretty cool. So, hopefully that pushed them over the line with that sale at the end of the day, and we get another customer on the books to help with their security.
That's the dream when you're running a POC and you can highlight something that's, active and current right now, and you really proven your value right from the get-go. It's sometimes you can plug in all of the log sources and nothing really lights up, and you're like, shit, we need to showcase some value, because sometimes no news is good news, but a customer wants some news. They want to see something. They need some activity, some tangible stuff to then say, all right, yeah, this is cool. Yeah, they can keep us secure. They've highlighted X, Y, Z. If there's nothing there, then it's hard.
And that's a conversation that I'm having consistently with our customer success or our business development team in terms of, especially for threat hunts, like how do you show the value of a threat hunt? Like surely nothing returned is a good thing. But yeah, exactly like you're saying, Rob, customers want you to go in and you found all of these different hackers in their environment from our threat hunts, but ultimately that means they compromise, which is obviously a bad thing.
So then that's, Rob, I know you wanted to talk a little bit about visibility, but I think we might have to delay that one for next time. But you've kind of planted some nice seeds there of being able to see everything in the environment so you can catch the kind of threat. So should we pick that one up next week, gentlemen?
Oh, you bloody tease.
You're gonna have to tune in next week if you want to listen to us talk about visibility, which on one hand sounds like it's boring, but I promise you it's not. Visibility underpins everything that we do in cybersecurity. What's the maxim, Robbie? If you can't see it,
you can't triage it.
Honestly, it didn't happen.
Kind of works. Yeah. You can't see it, you can't protect it.
See it, say it, analyze it.
No. Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your time today. Hopefully, listeners and the chat got some insights out of that. So the cybersecurity information of the week, some real topical stuff there, as well as our own experiences of what it's actually like when you kind of apply these stories into our day-to-day security operations that we all have interactions with. So my name is Josh. We've had AJ, incident response specialist, Vaughan, automation and SOC leader, Robbie, cybersecurity consultant. We are the Empirical Trainers, and if they want to find more of us, who's going to tell them where they can do that?
Are you going to get it right?
School.com/cybersec.
Thank you, Robbie. Thank you.
That's a wrap.